I'm Mario Martinez Jr., CEO and founder of Vengreso, and we are the creators of FlyMSG.io, the free personal writing assistant and text expander application. On each episode of this podcast, you will hear from sales leaders, practitioners, and influencers to help you grow your sales numbers at scale. So, get your pen and paper or iPad and keyboard and start taking notes as you're now listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Welcome to this episode of the Modern Selling Podcast. Now, in this episode, I'm actually bringing you a podcast by my friend Mark Schreiner on the Grow Fast podcast, where he featured me to talk about several things related to sales enablement and prospecting tools. And of course, we're going to spend some time talking about AI, FlyMSG, text expansion, and commenting on LinkedIn and how to be able to integrate that fully into connecting with buyers. So take a listen to this podcast with Mark Schreiner on the Grow Fast podcast right here on the Modern Selling Podcast.
Hey, Mario. How are you?
Mark, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Hey, my pleasure. Hey, I think you are in the Bay Area?
I am, right outside of San Francisco in Lafayette, California. If you don't know where Lafayette is, right next to Walnut Creek.
Awesome. This is a great place. Has spring arrived yet or starting to? Or
Spring is in full swing. Unfortunately, it's a little early, but I have this, I was telling my wife just this morning, we have this beautiful passion fruit vine that we planted a little over a year ago. And we planted in October. It's weathered the storm. It survived. It grew about 25 feet wide. It's massive. And it was just a little old, small, vine just like that. And it's an aggressive grower. The downside is it produced a bunch of passion fruit, but because we're not the warmest climate, it's taken a long time for that fruit to ripen. And usually in the February timeframe, latest like March 1st, you're supposed to cut it all the way back by 90% so it can regrow again, all the new growth. Unfortunately, because the fruit was green and not purple, I actually couldn't cut it back, and now all the new growth is coming in, so I don't know what to do.
It's kind of awesome when you plant something that grows that much because it makes you feel like, hey, man, I know what I'm doing. I've got, farmer skills. So
Exactly. In this case, it's all the genetics of the plant.
Well, hey, I got to say, as I was prepping for the show, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile and some of your other web pages, and I mean, you've got some serious sales chops. I mean, in addition to being the host of the Modern Selling Podcast, which has over 262 episodes, ranked top 1.5% of all podcasts globally, according to Listen Notes, you're also the CEO and founder of Vengreso, which we're going to talk about, by the way. You're on several advisory boards, and I looked at your recommendations, and it was like an endless scroll of all of your colleagues, former colleagues, and people that you've been, had in your workshops and training programs. So, it's a real honor to have you on the show.
Mark, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's been a fun trek, and it's I'm honored actually to have had so many great things happen to my career, as well as so many great people that I've encountered and had the chance to mentor or be mentored by.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about sales is you get a chance to meet a lot of people, and you can learn from those people, and you can help those people. What I want to talk to you about today is some of the different sales enablement platforms that are out there, because it's becoming increasingly super important and almost it's a necessity to kind of keep abreast of what's available and figure out what platforms to use and how to use them. Also want to talk a little bit about social selling, and then maybe some other sales topics. But before we do that, I mean, clearly you have a lot of passion about selling, and there are people who avoid sales at all cost. And then there are some people who are kind of reluctant salespeople. There are some people who thrive at selling, but they don't give a lot of deep thought to selling. And then there are people like you that obviously you give a lot of thought and time and to, what does it take to be successful in sales, and then develop programs and platforms for people to be successful. Where does that passion and interest come from?
Wow, that's a really deep question. I don't know if I've ever thought about where does the passion come from. It's just always something that I've done, right? So I actually had my first sales job was given to me by a gentleman by the name of Hunter Anderson, and I worked at a Ritz camera centers. If anybody's listening and they're old enough to know that we used to take our 35 millimeter film, we used to bring it to like a Walgreens or a Costco or some sort of shop that they would produce the pictures for us, and that company was Ritz Camera Centers, one of the companies. And so I was a photo finisher, and I got accepted in my senior year to Cal Berkeley. And unfortunately, I had very little money, came from a poor background. And as a result, I had to pay my own way through college. And so the first year I applied for a couple hundred scholarships. I ended up getting enough money to be able to pay my first way. So I had to work my first year to pay for my second year. So I applied for a transfer. I was in Concord, California. I applied for a transfer as a photo finisher to the Berkeley store. And Hunter Anderson came in and he said, can we talk? And I said, sure. He was the regional director of the retail stores, maybe like a couple hundred stores or so. And so he said, I received your request for a transfer, and I've got good news and I've got bad news. Which one do you want first? And I said, I'm always a bad news guy type of first. Tell me the bad news, and let me see the silver lining at the end. So I said, bad news. He says, bad news is I can't approve your transfer. And my heart just sunk down to the bottom of my stomach, and I panic and just sheer fear across my face. And I was like, what do you mean you can't approve it? Why can't you approve it? And Hunter says, I got some questions for you that I need to understand. And I was like, sure. So he opened up the book, and it was the book of volume sales. And that was the old school days. You remember, Mark, where we had the perforated tabs where you can pull off on the side of the page and all those little dots that you These are the old school binders, right? So anyway, so he opens up the book and he starts showing me, he's like, look at these numbers. And he starts showing me my volume of sales closed. And now, mind you, I was a part-time high school kid working at one of the smallest Ritz camera stores out of the entire region that he oversaw. And what he pointed out to me was that I was in the top 3 in sales as a part-time associate. Now, mind you, I was not even a salesperson. I was just a photo finisher. So he asked me, I need to understand, what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean, what am I doing? And immediately I felt like he was attacking me in the essence of I was doing something shady, right? And that's what I felt originally. That's where that line of questioning was going, as if maybe I was faking the volume, putting data in that shouldn't be there. And so we went back and forth, and I was like, I don't understand what you're asking me or what you're insinuating. Are you saying that I've done something wrong? And he says, no, just take a step back. You haven't done anything wrong yet. What I'm trying to figure out is how is you, as a part-time photo finisher, leading the region for the last year in sales in the top 3? I'm trying to figure that out myself. What are you doing? And I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't understand what you're asking for. He says, all right, walk me through. I come in as a brand new person into the store, ready to pick up my photo finishing. What do you do? And so I basically said, all right, so when I'm doing photo finishing, I take all the pictures because we have to sort through every single one of them, make sure it's got the right colors, magenta, blue, cyan, and I pull out all the right ones. If I can color correct, I color correct, but some of them are just messed up because they use the wrong equipment to be able to take the picture, meaning it's a blur of their kid at the soccer team, right, on the soccer game. And so I'd put always all the bad pictures on the top. And then they would pull them out and they would say, oh, Johnny, oh no, this picture didn't come out. Oh, and so I would say, are these pictures are things that you're trying to take pictures of consistently? And they would say, yeah, of course. And I was like, okay, well, what type of equipment do you have? And then they would tell me the equipment. I would, do you want to actually have these pictures come out correctly? Yes, of course I do. Okay, well, you have the wrong equipment. And so I would just walk them through what was wrong. I found the problem and I walked through what was wrong. And then at the end, they would say, well, what do I need to do to be able to take shots, make them come out clear? And I was like, well, here's the equipment that you would need. And by the time that was done, honestly, they were walking out with about $700 worth of merchandise, right? Equipment, warranty, film. And because I was wearing the white lab coat, right? I was a white lab coat. I was a technician. That's all I was. I was the technician. So
you're the camera doctor.
Exactly. I'm the camera doctor. Exactly right. So at the end of that whole discussion, he says to me, so what you're telling me then is all you were doing was helping a customer. And I sat back and I thought, I guess so. I guess that's the way you want to look at it. And he goes, that is the way to look at it. All you're doing is helping a customer. You're seeing a problem and you're helping them fix a problem. And so it probably full answer to your question, a long-winded question is what drives the passion is he ended up telling me, I can't approve you to transfer over to the Berkeley store, which, by the way, was the number 2 store in the region. Yeah, just in terms of volume of sales, the number 2 store. And actually, it was the largest store of the entire region. Yeah. So he says, I can't approve you. So ask me what the good news is. And I'm like, all right, what's the good news? He says, I will approve you going in as a sales associate.
Wow. Awesome.
And I was like, okay. And he was like, congratulations.
I guess I'm a salesperson now. Hey.
And he's like, you get a whole $1.25 a raise on your base salary.
Now, were you getting in that role? Were you getting a commission, or were you incentivized in somehow so that you? Yeah.
So in the new role, I would get commissions, percentage of. But in the former role, all I was doing is they would give spiffs. So even a photo finisher could get a spiff. It was like a 10-cent spiff on a extra roll of camera, a roll of film or something like that. So my commissions now all of a sudden went up, and that's actually how I started making money to pay for my second year. Is through Ritz camera centers and selling over there. Eventually, I was actually moved from the Berkeley store within 4 months into the highest grossing store in California, which was the Rockridge store. And so they moved me over there as a part-time seller, and I stayed in the top 5 always for that the next year that I worked for them. And that's where my kickoff was. So I guess answer to your question is what drives the passion. If you think about the art of selling, sales is the art of helping. That's really what it is. And so I'm always looking for, you said, the camera doctor. I'm looking for the problem. I want to understand the pain. I want to understand the issue so that I can help apply a solution. And that's probably what drives me.
You were asking questions, and then trying to figure out what they needed and offer a solution. So that's awesome. I back in the day, I remember dropping off the film and having to wait like a week or 10 days, and it seemed like it would take forever. And then somebody came out with this express 24-hour service, and we were like, "Oh my God, you can get it back in 24 hours!" And then obviously it's a different world today. The other thing that's different today is just the tools that we use for selling. It used to be back then, if you're in a shop, people would come in, but if you were doing outbound sales, you would have your phone. Okay. And then we had these fax machines, and that, some people would send faxes. It was basically phone and then maybe a CRM, some had a CRM tool to, just very basic stuff back then. Now, I don't think you can survive doing outbound sales or any type of sales without some of these new sales enablement platforms. And so I kind of like to talk about that because, in our lifetimes, the landscape for selling has changed so much, and tools are becoming increasingly important. Let's start off with Vengreso, for example. Because I am a neophyte user of TextExpander, and the reason I started using TextExpander is I was listening to Tim Ferriss, the Tool of Titans, and one of the people he interviews in there talks about it, and so I started to use it, but I don't feel like I'm optimizing it. So why don't you talk a little bit about Vengreso, TextExpander, and some of the kind of use cases?
Sure. So this is very much so a workflow tool that is for an individual seller or business owner, for sure. And we actually developed a whole other use case of non-sellers. So about 50% of our users are accounts payable, the doctors, lawyers, physicians, physical therapists, mortgage brokers, real estate agents. And so essentially the idea behind a TextExpander, Vengreso created a tool called FlyMSG. We are actually the 4th largest tool out there in the market. And so we're the up and coming right now. We're sitting in the contender spot, actually. And the idea as a TextExpander tool was you and I have usually snippets of text, messaging templates, those types of things that we use over and over and over again, that we have stored on a Google Doc, Word Doc, OneNote, Evernote, Notepad, Notebook, draft email, or worse yet, we hunt and peck for it in our sent folder. And every single time we go to find this content, it takes us anywhere between 30 seconds to up to 15 minutes to go find this material.
And it's the most frustrating 15 minutes ever because you have it and you're like, where is it, man?
Exactly right. So the idea behind a text expander, which actually I would say the company TextExpander, they actually are the original founders of this technology from 18 years ago, about 19 years ago when they started the company. It took them 19 years, though, to be able to actually get into a swing and actually get funding, which they got about 2 years ago of about $40 million in funding. So it took them a long time to build up their platform to about 400,000 users. And subsequently, what they did was take all these snippets, put them into a platform, the cloud, and then with a few short keystrokes, you can build it out anywhere. And the best part is that it can be used across any platform. So with FlyMSG, what we were doing is in our sales prospecting training, which is what Vengreso LLC was known for. We became the largest digital sales prospecting training company, really helping sellers and business owners focus in on how to utilize digital channels, LinkedIn, video, email, as an example, to engage with their target buyer. So one of the problems that we were having was we had a playbook, and it was 27-page playbook that we gave to our enterprise clients. And inside there were 60 different sales scripts, everything from a cold email outreach down to a how to wish someone a happy work anniversary and convert it into a meeting, right? So all of these things we had them on a Word doc. But what we noticed is our clients like at Cisco, HP, ADP, even the world's largest vanilla extract company with their 15 sellers, Virginia Dare, they were taking these playbooks and they had the Word document, and they would have that, plus they would have one from their manager, plus they would have one from the enablement team, and then they may have some of these other engagement tools that had also templates inside there. But the problem with all of these solutions was that generally it was a document or it worked only in one application.
Okay.
So we were creating a problem for our sellers. So we created FlyMSG. We were actually using a tool called Auto Text Expander, which was acquired by Get Magical, one of our competitors. And it was a basic, stupid, simple tool. And I was like, we could build this. Let's just build this ourselves. And so that we can control all the content and the templates, since those other tools didn't have templates inside them. And so we did that. And we built a tool. We put all of our templates inside there so that when we onboarded training users to go through our training, they would have access to the templates, and with a few short keystrokes, they could build it out on Salesforce, on LinkedIn, on Outlook Online, or Gmail, SalesLoft, Outreach, anywhere, and ubiquitously. So that was the idea behind FlyMSG, was put it as a text expander. But then we said, wait a minute, greater than 50% of our user base is the sales line of business, which naturally made sense because most sellers are utilizing templates, or at least some sort of template that they can modify and customize to an individual. So we started looking at, all right, great, we're saving people time. That's phenomenal. We're saving roughly about 20 hours a month by using a text expander so that they could, quickly deploy these messages across everywhere.
Before you go any further, could you just give an example of one or two kind of messages? Because I think, we're deep in it. We understand it. But for people who are listening and aren't familiar with TextExpander, for example, just give one or two quick, simple use cases.
Yeah. So in FlyMSG, you can program something, a keyboard shortcut called, I have mine as dash. It's a dash, BAM for book a meeting. So dash BAM. Now, when I type out dash BAM, it says, hey, first name, happy to host a conversation. In order to avoid email scheduling volleyball, I've attached my link here. If that works for you, go ahead and click on it. Otherwise, send me 3 dates and times or your link, and I'll be happy to schedule from there. I look forward to talking for the next, for about 30 minutes, Mario, right? So normally that would take me, 60 to 90 seconds, maybe 30 to 90 seconds, depending on how fast I type. But if I type in dash, the dash button, BAM, anywhere online, LinkedIn, Outlook, Gmail, Salesforce, Outreach, if I type that in, it automatically populates that entire script. And all I have to do is double click for the first name and change it to Mark, Billy, Susie, Mary, etc.
You talk about the time savings as opposed to like if you were just going to type it out yourself. But even if you're going to copy and paste it, in my experience, that takes more time. But then you have formatting issues because every time you copy and paste, it's like everything. If you copy something from a Word document into LinkedIn or from an email message into LinkedIn, it just messes everything up. Or, and it doesn't really matter what platform. It's always going to have some issues. So what you're talking about is it comes out, it's there with the formatting.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we actually are the only text expansion tool, FlyMSGs, to actually do the following. And that's number one, things that you have like hyperlinked and images. None of the other expansion tools, when you use that in rich text format, it builds out correctly. Great, hallelujah. But when you move that over to a simple text messaging platform like LinkedIn messaging, where you can't have a hyperlink and you can't attach an image, we are the only one on the market, which is why our sales use case is so important, to auto-convert all of those images into a link. And we are the only one on the market that if you have a word hyperlinked, we will strip out that URL from the word and put it into a parenthetical next to the word.
That's awesome.
And that's really important because we found this as a use case specific to the sales line of business. So as we started on this path and this journey, we began seeing that first off, there was a whole product-led growth aspect to our product, meaning non-sellers, which represent a little under 50% of our user base, but it represents only about 15% or 20% of our total revenue, right? The other portion of our revenue started coming from the sales line of business, and we saw that what we could do is we could take our legacy on-demand training, which we grew to become the most well-known for sales prospecting training. We brought that over to FlyMSG and we created a FlyLearning component. FlyLearning is all around 14 hours of sales prospecting education for the individual or for the sales team that teaches you how to write messaging and how to engage with your buyer online. Then we give you a tool, FlyMSG, the text expansion portion, to be able to quickly deploy that messaging anywhere online in that one-to-one, hand-to-hand combat. And then two, we also noticed a very specific, and then three, we also noticed a very specific problem that our sellers were having. And that is, we taught you how to engage with a target buyer, but every time Mark wanted to sell to Mario, you would go to Mario's profile, you'd go to my posts, you would then look at my posts and determine which one could I comment on. So what'd you have to do? Read every single post. And then as you read every single post, you actually then started thinking, what could I write? Then you selected one and you wrote something, and that would take you anywhere between 6 minutes to 12 minutes per post per customer. And so we said, well, wait a minute, we're typing and writing templates. What if we just incorporated AI to be able to write for a seller a response to a LinkedIn comment? To a LinkedIn post via comment. And so our whole impetus was save sellers time. And that's what we started doing. So we took 7 years of our training, brought it into AI, and now directly embedded into LinkedIn. If you download FlyMSG, any post written in up to 39 languages, when you can utilize Fly Engage, which is a feature under FlyMSG, and click optimistic, thoughtful, or curious reply, and we will write a response back to you in up to 39 languages for you in that particular cell, or for you in the author of that post. And so what that did was it took a 6 to 12 minute long process. And think about this, Mark. If you were prospecting to 50 prospects in a day, and you had to go do LinkedIn commenting, 6 to 12 minutes would be 6.5 hours to 12 hours and 6.25 hours. That's how long it would take you to be able to go through and do LinkedIn commenting. And so what was happening was, in our interview, in our study, companies like that we had trained, Cisco, ADP, HP, the mid-sized companies that we worked with, we trained them. And then what we discovered was nobody was commenting. All sellers began doing was like, thinking that would get the attention of the buyer. And so we went back and said, why? Why are you not doing this? Number one reason on the board, top answer, Family Feud, takes too much time. Number two reason on the board, because I didn't know what to write. Number three answer on the board, because I wasn't sure if what I was writing was appropriate. So what we did was we took a 6 to 12 minute long process, and now we brought that into under 90 seconds. And in some cases, our users report less than 30 seconds to be able to engage with a comment. And we're writing now insightful comments that are engaging with buyers on there. And we'll never, this is the important part, we'll never auto post. Never auto post. And then we said, wait a minute, there is something more important here. And this is the fourth item that FlyMSG now delivers to the sales community. And that is, hey, there's an unknown secret. I don't know if you know about this, Mark, but if you and I connect on LinkedIn and you and I message one time back and forth, I message you, you reply. For the next 3 weeks, you will see my content in your newsfeed.
Wow.
Okay, wait a minute. So
okay,
this is
that's
huge.
That's worth the price of admission for this podcast right there. I wasn't aware of that, and I'm on LinkedIn every day, just like everybody else. It seems like in the whole world. That's huge. Please continue, because you want to. I know where you're going with this. Is you want to kind of semi-automate that process, right?
Well, not automate. What we want to do is we want to be able to make sure that the technique. So if I'm going to connect with you, I have to give you a reason to want to connect with me. So that's the commenting. That's the fly engage, right? Then you look at my profile or you reply back to me. Phenomenal. When that happens, that's called a trigger event. So now I go to your profile and I send a personalized connection request. And I use FlyMSG, the TextExpander, to do -li connect, LinkedIn connect. And it puts out a template. And inside there it says, hey, first name, double click, change it to hey, Mark, right? Thanks so much for viewing my profile and for engaging on this post. As a leader in the space, I would love to be connected with you, or whatever the template might say. So now you do that, you hit send. Now Mark connects with me. All right, what do we teach in FlyLearning in our training? We teach you that once you connect with that person, you must, at that moment in time, welcome them to your network or say thank you or give them a reason. But what most sellers do wrong is they accept, customer or buyer accepts a connection request and they immediately try to pitch. They immediately try to book a meeting. Wrong. What you do now is you use the FlyMSG text expansion and you send my shortcuts are THXCONNECT, one word, thanks connect. And it has a template inside there and it says, hey, first name, thanks so much for connecting. And then you have a line for personalization, right? What was the reason why? Maybe there was a trigger event, maybe there wasn't. And then we say, generally when I reach out to IT leaders, sales leaders, marketing leaders, whatever they might be, they're usually trying to solve this particular problem. And that problem might be, in the case of sales, trying to book more meetings for their sellers. Directly below is an article I thought might be of value to you and your sales team. I encourage you to send it out. And it's how to get a 60% yes rate to a meeting. Now, if you're a sales leader and you read that and you know that you have a problem with prospecting, which I haven't met a sales leader who hasn't had a problem with prospecting, then most likely you're going to see that and say, oh, well, that's interesting. What is this article about? Boom, you click on it. Now what happens is I send you this article and then I close it out with a question. By the way, are these one of the challenges that you guys are dealing with? Now, what I'm looking for is an opportunity to solicit engagement. Hopefully they respond back to me on LinkedIn. But if they don't, and I've done marketing right, guess what happens? I brought them to my website. We now cookie their computer. And now marketing begins to do advertising on the marketing side, right? But on the sales side, they might say, yes, thanks so much for connecting. I do have this problem. I'll take a look at the article. Boom, right there. At that moment in time, now, if I'm smart, all my comments and all of my posts have an opportunity to show up in now Mark's newsfeed for the next 3 weeks. So what does that mean? It means that not only do I reach out to connect and personalize that, not only do I send you a welcome message with a valuable piece of content, but I also then should be commenting on other people's posts so that you see that. And I should be posting content so that you can, while you're sitting on the toilet, going through your newsfeed on LinkedIn, you actually see Mario Martinez's thought leadership. And that's why we created the fourth product inside of FlyMSG or feature set. And it's an AI social post generator called FlyPosts. And putting that all together, it can help you write that thought leadership content that you're looking for. You literally use our prompt. We put a prompt up on the window right there on start a post. And right inside there, you change the topic. And you put whatever topic you want inside there, and AI will go and write a post for you. And then you can add in your color, your story, your tags, whatever you want to add inside there. And that process, Mark, take a wild guess. The average length of time it took in our study, it took a seller to write a post. Guess how many minutes that was?
I'm going to say less than a couple because you're using AI. So go ahead.
Well, no. Well, before AI,
no. If somebody has to write their own post, I've definitely more than 10 to average person. I don't know.
32 minutes to write a post.
Ooh, ouch.
Right? So what did sales leaders want? They didn't want their sellers spending 30 minutes to write social media content, right? Nobody wants that. And why did it take that long? Well, because nobody's been trained as a social media marketing manager, so they had no idea what was right, what was wrong, what should I say, what shouldn't I say, how do you get the algorithm to respond to you? So what we did is we put our 7 years of content training for sellers into the AI, and now we're writing the post for you. And that process went from 32 minutes down to less than 9 minutes for an individual seller, and sometimes even shorter than that for an individual seller. But the point is that if you're not thinking of this as an omni-channel approach, meaning you've got your phone calls taking place using tools that you can utilize for phone calling, you've got your email cadence going using sales engagement tools like SalesLoft, Outreach, Apollo, you name it inside there. Then you've got your social environment taking place. You cannot do social selling hand-to-hand, one-to-one on every single prospect. You need tools to enable that. And so what we did with FlyMSG was we said, us, TextExpander, TextBlaze, Get Magical, all four of us all say the number one buyer of our product is the sales line of business. Well, what for us, we are the 800-pound gorilla in the sales space. And so what we created was workflow tools that allow you to be able to quickly get the messaging out, to quickly write messaging for your buyers on their posts in their language, and to quickly help you be able to write your social media posts so that you can stay in that person's newsfeed, because those first 3 weeks are the most critical weeks after connecting.
You know, everything that you said makes sense, and I'm a firm believer. I mean, it used to be you would call people, and you should have a kind of structured conversation or pitch. It's an engagement strategy when they pick up the phone. These days, I don't know how many people are actually calling people with cold calls and stuff. And then it was emails, and then there was like the do not call list and the do not email list, and then it was LinkedIn, and now with LinkedIn, everybody's getting inundated. And so you have to get, work the kind of engagement strategy that you're talking about. And even that used to be like, what did you say? I think you said the one-to-one hand-to-hand combat method. It just doesn't scale, right? But it used to scale. And now it just doesn't, because, people they're blocking a lot of stuff, and we're all just inundated with so much information. So here's my question though. So you use a tool like this, which you pretty much have to, but sometimes there could be a perceived trade-off in terms of the authenticity of the content that you're using, because I don't want a machine writing for me. I want to be authentic in terms of, my message to you, and my message to you might be a little bit different than my message to another prospect. How do you address that kind of concern?
Great question. And that's the whole purpose of creating human-assisted AI. Yeah. So we're not replacing the seller, we're augmenting the seller. Now, if I were to line up 100 sales reps, Mark, and answer your question, if I were to line up 100 sales reps and say, write a comment to this post, I would probably have at least 50% of them take a long time to figure out what it is that they're going to write. The other 50% would write something, and it would be all over the map. But if I were to give those same 100 sellers versions of something that they can edit from, they would accomplish that task of writing a response far faster than they would from doing it from scratch. And so that's the whole idea behind human-assisted AI, which is what we're doing, and we are not doing automation. You still have to click the button, you still have to read it, and you still have to click post, yeah? And so that's very important that you understand that my belief is that these sales engagement tools are, when they came out, they were important, but the problem is we began to spray and pray. And as we sprayed and pray, our results didn't get better. Before we had a sales engagement tool like a SalesLoft, Outreach, or Apollo, or any of these other tools, before that we were getting less than 3% response rate. After implementing them, we're still getting a less than 3% response rate. The difference is that I got to do it instead of 100 people, I got to do 10,000 people. And so now it looked like volume went up and my response rates went up, but they never did. It's still the same amount, right? You just got to do it more. So that was the scale part. And so the same thing applies for when you're engaging with somebody. You've got to use your brain. And this is why we tell people in our training, hey, when you see a comment, never, ever, never, ever, never, ever post that comment without doing two things. Number one, you mention the individual. Why? Because if Mark doesn't see that comment on his notifications within 24 hours, guess what's being sent to his email box? A notification from LinkedIn that Mario Martinez has tagged him, and the first line, I think it is, or first two lines of my comment will show on his email. Now, why do we want that? We want that because there is 100% deliverability rate of an @linkedin.com email address getting into my box because no spam filter blocks that. So we want that. So now what I'm doing is not only am I mentioning getting in their notifications, but within 24 hours, I've got that plus an email coming from LinkedIn telling them that I mentioned them. And that is why it's so important to use your brain in sales. If I wanted to automate this, I could, but that would negate the value of having a salesperson. We don't need you. The reason why we need a salesperson is because we want somebody to think, is this comment right? And is it contextually relevant?
Totally makes sense. And I also like the fact that, the platform is built upon the years and years of training content and programs that you developed to help people create effective responses or outbound messages. So let's go over to that kind of aspect for a second. If you're going to send let's go with a comment first and then just a cold outbound message. What are some of the key ingredients to include in there? You mentioned the of course, if for a comment, but go ahead.
So on a comment, first of all, you got to make sure that whatever you're writing is contextually relevant to the post itself. And very specifically, you're looking to do one of two things. You're either looking for acknowledgement of their individual post and to create a question about their specific post that creates curiosity, which creates the engagement. If they reply back to you, that is a knock on your door for you to be able to reach out and actually connect with them individually. So the idea is create engagement. And that's what LinkedIn wants you to do, is to create engagement on their platform, yeah? The second part that you may be looking for is look for an opportunity that you can incorporate specific messaging about your product or service. So as an example, let's just say I'm a personal coach and I do help you with stress and anxiety as a busy business executive. Well, you may post something about the struggles of being a leader and how that being a leader is so hard because you've got so many different people. You may post something. I may write a comment that says, Mark, that totally makes sense. I've been there, done that. I see the challenges that people have had. And thanks for sharing this particular post. And I may stop it there. I may tag you. You may say, okay, cool. And you like the post. Great. Or using my brain, I may write a comment that says, hey, Mark, great. I really appreciate that. I've been there before. And one of my last clients that I worked with actually struggled with this very same problem. And what I think is really valuable is 3 things to be able to deal with stress and anxiety, right? So now I become very insightful and I'm adding value to the conversation. And then you ask a question to solicit engagement in that particular comment. And that's really the key there in terms of LinkedIn commenting is, am I adding value to the conversation that will drive Mark to respond back to me or Mark to like my post? If I can do that, now I earn the right to go and ask Mark to connect. That is the key right there, is to create value. On the email side, we have a methodology. And if you went to pvcsalesmethod.com, PV, Victor, C, like PVC piping, pvcsalesmethod.com, we teach in our training program, there are, first off, 111 words or less. That's your target, 111 words or less. You have a P, you have a V, and you have a C in every one of your messages. And what's the P? Personalization. 2 ways to personalize. Hyper-personalize to the individual or personalize to the persona's pain. Example, hey, Mark, I love your podcast that you had with fill in the blank. I loved it when you guys talked about fill in the blank. Hyper-personalization to the individual. Or, Mark, generally, when I'm talking to CEOs of a SaaS company, which is what you are as well, they have 2 common problems. 1, boom. 2, boom. You may have struggled with these very 2 problems, and now I get to the value part, the V, the value. Included in this message here is an article on, and you fill in the blank. And most CEOs have said, thank you very much because this has been super helpful. Or a white paper, or an ebook, or a webinar, or a video, or a... You don't start with, let me show you my client testimonial and see how great we are. Let me show you our product page. Let me do a product dump. That's called diarrhea of the mouth. And we don't need more diarrhea. Nobody wants diarrhea, all right? So let's stay away from diarrhea. So we bring in the value. What's the value that we're going to bring that buyer?
Well, I just think it's super cool that you can take that methodology and then build a AI powered platform on top of that. Because if you were just to build, if you didn't come from your background and you were to build an AI kind of response platform, it wouldn't have that kind of intelligent response kind of framework built in. So I think that's super cool. Let me ask you, in terms of other sales enablement platforms, what are some of the up and comers or some of your favorite platforms?
Yeah. So I'll answer that question. I forgot to tell you the C for my PBC method. C, call to action. Have a call to action. Ask a question to solicit engagement to get a response back. Now, in answer to your question on up-and-coming sales tools, there are so many of them. It used to be macro focus, like we had Salesforce, and then we had LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and that was it. But now the market has been so micro-niched. We have things from, for RFQ and RFPs and quoting, right? Tools in that particular segment. We've got prospecting tools. And underneath prospecting tools, there might be engagement tools, like I mentioned a couple of them earlier in this conversation. But you might have things like automation tools for your sales cadence specifically. You might have tools for gift marketing that you might do for gift marketing. You might have a video tool that is part of the sales engagement, like a Hippo Video or a OneMob or a Loom inside there. And then, of course, you've got tools like social selling, that FlyMSG is a portion of in that social selling. And then on top of that, you might have productivity tools that are inside there, like a FlyMSG or other tools that help speed up your process and your engagement with buyers. And so all of these particular tools really... and you also have sales intelligence tools like the Seamlesses of the world or the Zoom Infos of the world, right? You have all of these different types of sales intelligence tools to be able to help there. Oh, and I forgot about this. You also have scheduling tools, right? So that's part of the productivity. So these categories, you got productivity, you've got multiple things under productivity. Scheduling tools like a Calendly might be there. And then, of course, you have writing tools. And these writing tools might be a thing like Grammarly or Linguix, or soon to be with FlyMSG, we're going to be actually releasing some really hot sentence rewrite and restructuring tools to help you with writing the right type of message and really using AI to help you clean up your writing. And most of us, we write like we want to write like we're the college graduate, but we really write like we're like the seventh grader. So, and actually, there's some studies that show the most responsive type of messages are written at the 7th or 8th grade level, to believe it or not. So anyways, but there's all kinds of other tools that people utilize for sales prospecting and for being able to engage with their target buyers. And those are just a few. And then it doesn't take away from some of the other tools like the Seismic and the iSpots and the Show Pads of the world, which are the content tools that help you bring content forward to a particular buyer. And I actually forget the category. Maybe they're under sales engagement. I think that might be the case there for sales engagement tool. But any case, there you have it. Those are some of the tools that are out there that help sellers today.
Okay, and so there's a tremendous amount of large number of tools that we, and part of the process is going through and evaluating which tools are most appropriate for what a given organization is trying to accomplish. And you have your own sales and marketing organization, and then I think that you also coach and advise other organizations. So at what point, how do you divide, some of these tools that should be used maybe by marketing teams versus sales teams? Because there's a big crossover right now in terms of what is a marketing activity versus a sales activity. It used to be a little bit more cut and dry. So what are you seeing there? And then in terms of your sales team, obviously, with FlyMSG is a huge part of it. But what are the must-have two other tools?
So I'm a big believer that let marketing do what marketing does, and marketing should have its own set of tools to drive leads into the organization. And if you are one of the very few companies that marketing is driving 100% of all of your appointments, don't change anything. However, I have yet to speak to an organization that sales is not responsible for at least 60%, if not more, of their own lead generation. Marketing barely touches the surface when it comes to you got a great marketing department if they're producing 30% of your appointments, right? You got a great marketing department. That's usually what I see or below. So the way I talk to sales leaders and what I say to them is if you are in that category where you're producing 70% or less, of your meetings, and you're generating that, then you've got to do it on your own. Forget what marketing is doing. Sure, marketing may help with some of the things like Bombora and some of the sales intelligence tools or intent tools, those types of things. They may do that, but let marketing do their thing. You focused in on the hardest part of the selling cycle. And by the way, we did a study, over 1,295 respondents across the globe, across every vertical and every industry. And we asked a question, and that was, what's the hardest part of the sales cycle? Is it getting the first meeting? Is it presenting? Is it closing? Is it getting a proposal out? Those 4 items. And 69%, we did it 4 times, 4 studies across 3 years. And each time, the lowest percentage at any time that we did that study out of the 4 was 69% reported that the hardest part about the selling cycle is getting the first meeting. 69%. So what I would do is if I was a sales leader, I would spend 70% of my budget at minimum on sales prospecting tools and sales prospecting education and sales prospecting training. That is the hardest part of the sales cycle. The other 30% is all around the hello to close. So if you think of a spectrum being on both training and tools, you got pre-hello to the hello, which arguably is only 30% of the effort, but 70% of the hardest part, yeah? And then you got from hello to the close. This is the 70% of the effort, but only 30% of the hardest part, right? Of how hard it is. So spend your money on the sales prospecting tools. And you walk away thinking about one thing. What I would do is you have to have an engagement tool, which is like a sales cadence tool. You have to have phone that you're using to incorporating your sales cadence as well. So phone and email, those are the must-haves. Less than 3% response rate at best on all those 2 channels. But you better train your sellers on how to utilize a 3rd and a 4th channel. LinkedIn, and they need to know how to do it right. If they're a B2B seller, by the way, we're talking about B2B. And incorporate a 4th channel, which might be video, gift marketing, or you fill in the blank, direct mailing.
Explain gift marketing.
Yeah, so there's platforms like Sendoso that are out there, Postal.io as an example. And so I may use it as a lure to you, Mark. I may reach out and say, hey, Mark, by the way, I noticed that you were a 49ers fan. And so as a way of saying congratulations, and I'd love to be able to book a meeting with you, here is something that might be of interest to you. Or that's a very overt, direct, lots of money that you throw away that people take, get stuff for. On the other hand, you might do something like this. To get into your office, I may actually send you a gift marketing box. And in that gift marketing box is a predefined package. And this is oftentimes what happens on an ABM level, where I'm targeting a swath of executives that we know fit our target market and that are definitely people that we want to hunt. And I send them a gift marketing box. I open it up and it's got a video inside there and it's got maybe a coffee mug inside there and it's got some other things. But now it becomes very memorable where that person remembers who I am and they're like, who is this from? And generally speaking, you can book those types of meetings. So there's 2 sides of the gift marketing, but gift marketing is pretty hot and it works really, really well. Insanely well, as a matter of fact, in terms of helping to book appointments. It's costly, but it works.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all relative, right? I mean, if it costs you a couple $100 to book a meeting with a C-level person, and you book 5 of those a week, and you convert with 2 of them, I mean, it's all good, right? So,
Absolutely.
Well, hey, Mario, we got to wrap things up here. I mean, you've thrown a ton of information out here. What do you do, for yourself in terms of keeping abreast of the latest tools, or also like sales philosophies and techniques and strategies? Where do you go and what do you do?
So first off, you may not know this about me, but I hate reading books. And I actually, someone asked me this question. It was a couple weeks ago. What was the last book that you read? And I said, I haven't. I don't read a book end to end. I never read a book end to end unless I was in college, which was Mouse 1 and Mouse 2 about the Holocaust. That was the last one. So interestingly enough, I read thousands of blogs per year, and I watch hundreds and hundreds of videos, short videos, those 2-minute long videos. So I use multiple sources from sales influencers that have competing views against myself or that have similar types of views as well. And so I read lots and lots of blogs. And then, of course, I do select some of the top sales engagement tools that we talked about earlier, and I read some of their blogs because a lot of companies are writing content, and they're from a content marketer who's never done sales. All of our blogs on Vengreso, 1,000 plus blogs, they're from people who've done sales. And it's tried and true. So I trust those blogs, and there are some good ones that are out there as well that I read that are pretty insightful.
That's awesome. Well, I've learned a lot, and I'm sure we could keep this conversation going. I mean, you've got such a wealth of experience, but I thank you so much for coming on the Grow Fast podcast.
Thank you for having me, buddy. I appreciate it. And for anybody interested and they want to use FlyMSG for free, just go to FlyMSG.io.
I'll put that in the show notes. Thanks, Mario.
Thanks for listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Please do me a huge favor and give the Modern Selling Podcast a 5-star rating and a review on iTunes. Oh, and don't forget, if you'd like to save 20 hours or more in a month and increase your productivity, go right now and download FlyMSG, that's FlyMSG.io for free. It's your free text expander and personal writing assistant. Hey, thanks for listening in, and until the next episode, good selling.